If you walked every morning for 6 months and your belly has not moved, this is not a discipline problem. It is a targeting problem. The fat you can pinch sits under your skin. The fat that decides your health wraps around the liver and the loops of your gut. 2 people can weigh the same and carry twice as much deep fat. The scale never tells you which one you are. That deep fat is not padding. It sits between your organs and drains straight into your liver, which has to handle everything it sends. So the question is not walking or fasting. The question is, which one moves the fat wrapped around your organs and which one only moves the number under your feet? Obesity Reviews 2016, 117 trials. Their words: in the absence of weight loss, exercise is related to 6.1% decrease. 6.1% off the deep fat with no weight loss at all. In that same review, cutting food without moving changed that deep fat by about 1%. Walking does something a smaller plate cannot. The muscles in your legs start pulling fat out of your blood, and the fat packed around your organs is the store that answers first. But do not throw fasting out yet. In one 12-month trial, people who ate inside an 8-hour window lost real weight. Just no more than the group that only counted calories. Hunger is not the target. The target is a pocket of fat sitting deep in your abdomen, pressed against your intestines, feeding your liver all day long. One habit aims, the other one only subtracts. For the next half hour, I am going to show you exactly how to make them work together. Same weight, different bodies? The scale weighs your bones, your water, your muscle, the fat under your skin, and the fat you cannot see, and then hands you one number for all of it. One number cannot tell you where you store your fat, and where you store it is the entire story. Put your hand flat on your belly. The soft layer you can pinch is the fat under your skin. Press deeper and you meet a wall of muscle. Behind that wall, in the space where your stomach and your intestines sit, there is a second kind of fat. It packs itself around your organs and it sits directly upstream from your liver. Picture 2 accounts at the same bank. The fat under your skin is a savings account. Money goes in slowly, comes out slowly, and mostly just sits there. The deep fat is a checking account. Money moves in and out of it all day, every day, and the statement lands on your liver. Savings sits still. Checking moves. And the account that moves is the one talking to your blood pressure, your blood sugar, and your liver. Hour after hour, while you are not looking. You have met both accounts already. The friend with thin arms, thin legs, and a hard, round belly. The neighbor who looks heavier all over, walks his dog twice a day, and whose blood work comes back clean year after year. So when you ask which burns more deep belly fat, walking or fasting, you are asking a sharper question than it sounds. Which of those 2 habits changes the checking account, and which one only changes the total in the bank? PLOS 1, 2013, 15 trials, 852 people. Their words: aerobic training of moderate or high intensity has the highest potential to reduce visceral adipose tissue. Visceral adipose tissue is the long name for the deep fat, and that is the last time I will use it. What matters is the condition of that review. Those people did not change what they ate. They only moved, and the deep account came down anyway. Read that once more. No diet, no smaller plate, no counting. Just movement, and the account that feeds your liver got smaller. That is the first thing almost nobody over 60 is ever told. If that already changed how you look at your belly, subscribe. There are 5 more mechanisms coming in this video alone, and the next one is the one most people have backwards. I will give you the empty walk method in full with the exact numbers before this video ends. 6 levers, 2 of them take 10 minutes a day, but first you have to see what each habit really does inside you, because before you spend 3 months of mornings on this, you should know why the deep account is worth draining at all. It is not about how you look in a shirt. It is about what that fat does for a living. The fat around your organs is not quiet tissue. It sits against your intestines and it empties into a thick vein that runs from your gut straight into your liver. So everything it releases arrives at the liver first at full strength before the rest of your body ever sees it. Every other fat store in your body sends its traffic into the general circulation. This one has a private road, and the road ends at your liver. A liver taking that delivery all day starts making more sugar than you asked for and starts keeping fat of its own. That is the chain behind the blood test that came back a little off last year when nothing about your life had changed. The letter from the surgery, fasting glucose a little high, triglycerides a little high, blood pressure a little high, nothing wrong enough to name, and everything drifting in the same direction. 3 small numbers, all pointing at the same account. That is why this video is about the fat you cannot pinch and not about the fat you can. Start on the fasting side and follow a meal. Food goes down your throat into your stomach, and your stomach hands it to your intestine. Sugar and fat cross the wall of your gut and enter your blood. For the next few hours, your body is busy putting that delivery away. Nothing comes out of storage while something is going in. That is the honest description of eating and not eating. When food is coming in, your body stores. When nothing has arrived for a while, your body spends what it already has. Fasting simply makes that second window longer. The idea is beautiful. The question is what it does to the deep account. The New England Journal of Medicine, 2022. They randomly assigned 139 patients with obesity to time-restricted eating for 12 months against plain calorie cutting. 12 months is a long trial. Both groups lost weight. The window group lost about 8 kilos, the calorie group about 6, and the gap between them was too small to call real. Same food, same calories, one group watching the clock. The clock added nothing. The window did not fail. It just did not add anything on top of eating less. That is a very different sentence from the one you have been sold, which explains something you have probably lived. You closed the kitchen at 7 at night for 8 straight weeks. The trousers still fit the same, and you decided you had done it wrong. JAMA Internal Medicine, 2020, 116 adults. Their conclusion, time-restricted eating is not more effective in weight loss than eating throughout the day. 12 weeks of eating only between noon and 8, and the whole group lost under 1 kilo, less than a bag of sugar. And in the part of the trial that was measured in person, a slice of what came off was lean mass, not fat. Lean mass means the muscle on your thigh, your hip, and your shoulder. That muscle is not decoration. It is the place where fat is actually burned, and it is the frame that holds you upright when you stand from a chair. You wanted the belly to go. You did not want the thigh to go with it. Hold that thought because it becomes one of the 6 levers later. 24 weeks of skipping breakfast, black coffee on an empty stomach, the same lunchbox, the same evening plate, Clinical Nutrition 2018. 100 adults, 24 weeks, fasting every other day against daily calorie cutting. Their words, the ratio did not change in any group. That ratio is the deep fat compared with the fat under the skin. In 6 months of hard fasting, it did not tilt. Both accounts shrank a little in the same proportion. Nobody aimed at anything. The body took what it wanted from wherever it wanted, which is why 2 people can do the same eating window for 6 months and end up in different bodies. One of them walked to the station every day. The other one drove and waited for the clock to do the work. Fasting is a fence, not a target. A fence around the hours you eat. Move the fence and you may eat less. You still have not told your body where to take the fat from, and a fence has real value. Fewer trips to the cupboard after dinner. No biscuit at 11 at night. One less meal to decide about on a hard day. So if the window has kept your evenings quiet for years, keep it. Nothing here asks you to eat later. It asks you to stop waiting for a clock to do a job that belongs to your legs. So let me be fair to the fasting side, because I use it myself. Most people who fast eat less without counting a single thing. That is a real advantage. It is just an advantage on the total, not on the address. It works in the places where hunger was never the problem. The bowl of crisps at 9 at night, the second helping because it was there, the tin of biscuits somebody left in the kitchen, so keep the window. Just stop expecting it to choose where the fat comes from. It cannot. It was never built to do that job. Now turn the question all the way around. What happens to the deep account when you change nothing at all about your plate and you simply walk? No gym, no class, no lycra, a pair of shoes, a street, and 40 minutes that were going to be spent sitting anyway. No membership, no appointment, and nobody watching you do it. This is the experiment almost nobody runs because it looks like a waste of time. You keep your food exactly as it is. You add movement. And then somebody takes a picture of the inside of your belly to see what actually moved. Annals of Internal Medicine, 2000. 52 obese men. 3 months. Diet against exercise. Their conclusion: exercise without weight loss reduces abdominal fat and prevents further weight gain. Look at what that trial did. One group ate less. One group moved more and lost the same weight, and a third group moved more but was fed enough to hold their weight steady. That third group is the one that breaks the scale as a tool. Their weight did not move, their belly did. The scan showed less fat inside the abdomen, around the intestines, and behind the muscle wall, while the number under their feet sat still for 3 months. 0 kilos lost. Deep fat down anyway. If your only instrument is a bathroom scale, you would have called that experiment a failure and quit in week 3. Annals of Internal Medicine again. Their conclusion: weight loss induced by increased daily physical activity without caloric restriction substantially reduces obesity, particularly abdominal obesity. Read the conditions in that line one more time. Increased daily physical activity without cutting calories. And the fat that answered was the fat in the abdomen. Every word in that sentence is doing work, which is exactly what most people do in week 3. The scale says the same thing on Monday. The shoes go back in the cupboard, and the walk becomes something you used to do. 3 weeks of real work thrown away by the wrong instrument. Journal of Applied Physiology, 2005. Duke University, 175 adults. Their words: the equivalent of 11 miles of exercise per week prevented significant accumulation of visceral fat. That trial had a group that did nothing at all, and this is the part that should get your attention. In 6 months of ordinary life, the deep fat of the people who did nothing grew by almost 9%. Doing nothing is not a flat line, it is a slope. Nobody in that group ate worse. Nobody gained a dramatic amount of weight. They simply stayed still for 6 months, and the account next to their liver filled up on its own. Meanwhile, the walking group covered about 12 miles a week on their plan, roughly 2.5 kilometers a day. Their deep fat held the line for 8 months, while the same fat kept building in everyone who stayed on the sofa. Same trial, same journal. Their words: significant gains in visceral fat over only 6 months emphasize the high cost of continued inactivity. That is the sentence I wish somebody had read to me at 55. Sitting still is not neutral. It is a choice with a price, and the price is paid in the one place you cannot see and cannot pinch. 12 miles a week sounds like an expedition. Split across 7 days, it is a walk to the shops, a walk back, and one longer loop on a Sunday. And while you do that, the fat wrapped around your intestines is the tissue giving fuel up first, which is why the belly changes shape before your arms or your thighs ever do. International Journal of Obesity, 2007. Their words: at least 10 Met hours a week of aerobic exercise, such as brisk walking, is required for visceral fat reduction. Met hours is just effort multiplied by time. Brisk walking is worth about 3 of them an hour. So 10 Met hours a week comes out at roughly 3 hours and 20 minutes of brisk walking spread across the week. Under that line, the deep fat mostly holds. Above it, it starts to move. Not 2 hours, not 6. Somewhere around 3.5 hours a week of walking that is actually brisk. Write that number down because it becomes the first lever of the method. 3.5 hours a week, 30 minutes a day with a Sunday off. It fits inside the time most people spend watching the news and waiting for the kettle. And notice what that number is not. It is not an hour in a gym. It is not running. It is not sweat. It is a pace you can hold while carrying a conversation, done on most days of the week. And the same review found something that fits everything you have heard so far. The fat inside the abdomen can fall even when the weight on the scale does not, because the fat around the organs is drained by moving muscle, not by an empty stomach. So here's where the two habits separate. Cutting food lowers the total in the bank. Walking reaches into one specific account and spends from it. Those are different jobs. And for 30 years, people have been arguing as if they were the same job. It is the difference between turning down the tap and opening the drain. Both change the level in the sink. Only one of them decides which water leaves first. And for the last 30 years, everybody has been selling you taps. Turn down the tap, open the drain. You have been told to do one of them and call it the whole job. Here is why the deep account answers first. That fat sits in a busy neighborhood, wrapped around your gut, wired with nerves and fed by generous blood vessels. When your leg muscles ask for fuel, the fat with the best blood supply is the fat that hears the request soonest. Compare that with the fat on your hips and thighs. Quieter neighborhood, thinner blood supply, fewer connections. It is the savings account, and savings accounts are slow on purpose. The fat that is easiest to see is the hardest to move. The fat you cannot see is the one that moves first. Almost every diet you have tried had that backwards. Follow the fuel while you walk. Fat leaves the store near your organs, travels in your blood, and is taken up by the working muscle in your calves and thighs, where it is burned while you keep moving. And this is where the two habits stop competing. Skipping breakfast lowers what arrives. The walk decides what leaves and from where. One of them writes the size of the check. The other one writes the account number on it. Easy pace. Shoulders down, arms moving. You can talk in full sentences, but you would not want to sing. 40 minutes later, you are barely sweating, your knees are fine, and you have spent from the account that matters. That easy pace is not a consolation prize. At a gentle effort, fat is the main fuel your body reaches for. Go much harder, and you burn more sugar and less fat per minute, which is why the walk beats the sprint for this one specific job, which is very good news at 68. You do not need to find a spare hour, a running shoe, or a knee you no longer have. And there is a reason this matters more after 60 than it ever did at 40. The deep account fills faster with every decade, even when your weight barely moves. From about your 40th year, the muscle on your thighs and your shoulders begins to shrink a little each year, and the fat that used to be stored under the skin starts moving inward, packing itself around your gut instead. So the same trousers, the same weight on the scale, and a completely different body underneath. Less muscle to burn the fuel, more fat sitting at the door of your liver. Two changes moving in opposite directions, quietly, for 20 years. It is the reason your father looked slim and still had the heart scare, thin arms, thin legs, and everything stored in the one place nobody measured. You cannot stop the decade. You can absolutely change which account fills up. That is the whole point of the next 20 minutes. Back to Obesity Reviews 2016. Their conclusion, despite a larger effect of diet on total body weight loss, exercise tends to have superior effects in reducing visceral fat. 117 trials, nearly 5,000 people, and the two habits split exactly along that line. Diet won the weight, exercise won the deep fat. Nobody has to lose that argument because they were never answering the same question. Diet wins the scale. Movement wins the middle. Now you know why the mirror and the scale have been telling you two different stories. This is the moment my wife, Anna, still brings up. 2 years ago, I was doing everything on the eating side. Coffee until noon, no bread, no rice, a very serious face at dinner, and a car parked as close to every door as possible. I had lost 6 kilos and I was proud of it. Anna looked at me and said the thing nobody wants to hear. Your face got thinner and your belly stayed the same. She was right. I had turned down the tap and never opened the drain. So which one burns more deep belly fat? Here's the answer with no hedging. For the fat around your organs, walking wins. For the number on the scale, the eating window can win. And the two of them together beat either one alone. The reason is simple once you see it. Eating less lowers what arrives at the store. Walking empties the store because the muscle in your legs is the only place in your body big enough to burn that fat at scale. And if you can only have one of them this year, take the walk. The eating window without the walking gives you a smaller version of the same body. The walking without the window still moves the account that talks to your liver. Before I hand you the method, 3 things that will not do this job no matter how honestly you try them. You have probably paid for at least one of them. Sit-ups on the living room floor, the belt that heats your middle, the tea that promises to melt the fat while you sleep. You cannot choose the spot. Working a muscle does not empty the fat sitting on top of it, and no wrap, cream, or tea has ever moved fat that lives behind a wall of muscle next to your organs. The muscle you feel burning during a sit-up is the sheet of muscle in front. The fat this video is about is behind that sheet, wrapped around your intestines, and it does not care how many times you sat up. No exercise drains a spot. But one kind of movement drains one account faster than everything else, and now you know which one. That is the whole engine of this video, and everything from here on is how to build it. Which brings me to the empty walk method and to the 6 levers I promised you. 6 levers, 2 windows, 1 sequence. The empty walk method is not a diet, and there is nothing to sign up for. It is a way of arranging hours you already have. A kitchen clock, a pair of shoes by the door, a tape measure in a drawer. That is the whole equipment list for the empty walk method. No app, no gadget, no machine with a screen on it. Lever number 1, the dose. This is the one that decides whether anything else matters because below a certain amount of walking, the deep account simply does not open. The trials give you the line, and the line is lower than you feared. 3.5 hours a week, 30 minutes a day, 6 days, brisk, or 45 minutes, 5 days, if you would rather have a day off. Brisk has a definition you can feel. Your breathing changes by the second minute. You could still answer a phone call, but the person on the other end would hear it. That is the pace, not the pace of a stroll with a dog that stops at every gate. Most people who tell me walking never worked for them were walking about 90 minutes a week at the speed of a shop window. Right habit, half the dose, no result, and no idea why. Back to PLOS 1, 2013. Their words. The reduction of visceral adipose tissue potentially plays a pivotal role in the treatment of the metabolic syndrome. In that same review, aerobic work of moderate or high intensity was what moved the needle, and the effects showed up in 12 weeks. 12 weeks is 1 season. It is shorter than the time most people spend deciding to start. And if you are over 60, the dose does something you cannot see. Every brisk walk pulls on the long bones of your legs and hips, and the muscle that pulls on them is the same muscle that is burning the fat you came here for. 1 habit, 2 payments. The deep fat comes down, and the leg that keeps you off the floor gets stronger. That is lever 1, and it sets up the lever that decides when. Lever number 2, the empty window. Same walk, different hour. This is the walk you take before the first food of the day, and it is the reason the method has that name. After a night of sleep, your stomach is empty and your gut has nothing left to deliver. Your muscles are already living off the fat traveling in your blood. Walk in that state, and you are simply lengthening a job your body already started. Shoes on before the kettle, 30 to 40 minutes around the block. Coffee and breakfast when you get back, not before you leave. Water is fine. Black coffee is fine. Anything with sugar in it ends the window before it started. Empty means the tank, not the day. You are not skipping breakfast. You are moving it 40 minutes later and putting a walk in the gap where the walk was never going to fit otherwise. Now the honesty part, because you deserve it. There is no large trial proving that a fasted walk melts deep fat faster than the same walk after toast. What the trials show is that the total amount of walking is what counts. So why the empty window? Because it is the walk that actually happens. Nothing has gone wrong yet at 7 in the morning. By 6 in the evening, the day has had time to invent excuses. Ask anyone who has kept a walk for a year. It is almost always the morning one. The evening walk is the first thing that gets canceled by a phone call, a grandchild, a bad afternoon, or a good film. A habit that survives a bad day is worth more than a perfect habit that survives a good one. The morning walk survives bad days. That is the entire argument. And there is a second reason, which is about your appetite for the next 12 hours. A brisk walk before breakfast tends to leave you calmer around food, not hungrier. Most people expect the opposite and are surprised. That is lever 2, and it hands you straight to the smallest lever of the 6. Lever number 3, the after dinner 10 to 15 minutes. That is the whole instruction. It is the cheapest thing in this video and the one people skip first. Think about where your dinner is right now. It has left your stomach, crossed the wall of your intestine, and the sugar from it is standing in your blood, waiting for somewhere to go. Sit down and it waits. Stand up and walk, and your leg muscles open the door and take it in. Plate in the sink. 10 minutes around the block before the television goes on. Same street every night, so you never have to decide anything. Rain means the hallway, the stairs, or the length of a supermarket. The point is the 10 minutes, not the scenery. The peak in your blood sugar after a meal is flatter when you walk instead of sitting. Flatter peaks mean less sugar to store, and the deep account is where your body prefers to store it when the meal was large and the evening was still. 10 minutes of walking is enough for the muscle in your calves and thighs to start taking that sugar out of your blood before your liver has to decide what to do with the surplus. You're not burning off dinner. You're deciding where dinner goes. 10 minutes after the biggest meal every day. That is lever 3, and it makes the next one almost effortless. It also does something to the rest of the evening. People who walk after dinner sit down calmer, pick at the cupboard less, and fall asleep faster than the night they stayed in the chair. Lever number 4, the overnight gap. This is where fasting comes back into the method, doing the job it is actually good at, rather than the job it was sold for. 12 to 13 hours, last bite at 8 in the evening, first bite at 8 in the morning. That is not a fast. That is dinner, sleep, and breakfast. What the gap removes is not a meal. It removes the biscuit at 10, the second glass, the handful of nuts in front of the news, the toast at midnight, and the cheese you cut while putting the cheese away. Nothing on that list was ever a meal. Nothing on that list was ever decided. It was proximity, television, and a kitchen that stayed open until you went to bed. Count those honestly for a week, and most people find between 300 and 600 calories a day that nobody planned and nobody enjoyed. The gap deletes them without a single rule about what you may eat. It also gives your gut a long stretch with nothing arriving, which is when the wall of your intestine does its housekeeping and your liver finally gets a quiet shift with no new delivery to process. And the trials keep you honest here. The clock on its own did nothing extra. The clock plus a shorter list of things you eat is what worked. Same gap, different reason. Which is why I do not ask anyone to fast until noon. If 8 in the morning gets you a real breakfast with eggs, take the 8. A gap you keep for a year beats a gap you keep for 9 days. 13 hours you can hold. 16 hours you will abandon in March. Choose the one that is still there next winter. That is lever 4. It sets the size of the deficit, while levers 1, 2, and 3 set the address. And it leads straight into the lever that protects what you have left, which matters more every year after 60. Lever number 5, the protein floor. Because there is one way to do all of this and still end up worse off, and the fasting trial showed it in plain numbers. When you eat less and do not pull on your muscles, part of what disappears is muscle. The thigh gets thinner, the shoulder gets narrower, and the very tissue that burns fat while you walk gets smaller and quieter. Remember the 12-week window trial. A large part of what those people lost was lean mass, not fat. They were not lazy, and they were not doing it wrong. They simply had no signal telling their body that muscle was still needed. The signal is 2 things: protein at every meal, roughly a palm-sized portion, and 2 sessions a week where you make a muscle work against something heavy. Both of them happen in your kitchen, in clothes you are already wearing. Toast and jam is not breakfast for a body that is losing fat. It is a delivery of sugar with nothing to protect the muscle you are trying to keep. Eggs, fish, yogurt, beans, meat. 30 grams of protein at breakfast changes the whole day, and breakfast is where almost everybody is short. Heavy does not mean a gym. A shopping bag in each hand for a lap of the kitchen. Sitting down and standing up from a chair 10 times, twice. 2 bottles of water pressed overhead twice a week is the whole prescription. Tuesday and Friday before the kettle boils. Chair, bags, bottles. 8 minutes in the kitchen in whatever you slept in. Nobody has to see it and nothing has to be bought. That is what tells your body to keep the muscle on your thigh and your back while the fat around your organs leaves. Without it, you can shrink your waist and lose the frame that carries you at the same time. Protect the engine while you drain the tank. That is lever 5, and it makes the last lever possible because the last lever is the one that tells you whether any of this is working. Lever number 6, the count. Every method needs one number you can check yourself at home with nothing to buy. This one takes 60 seconds, and it is the most useful thing in this video. Walk the way you normally walk on a flat street with the shoes you actually own. Start a timer for 1 minute and count every time your right foot lands. Double it. That is your steps in a minute. Do it today, not after the video, not on Monday. 1 minute, one number, and you will know more about your walking than the last 10 years of thinking about it gave you. 100 steps a minute is the line. Above it, your walk is brisk enough to count towards the dose. Below it, you are strolling, and strolling is lovely, but it is not the treatment. The decision rule is simple. If your count is under 100, do not add minutes yet. Add speed. Take the same route and try to finish it 2 minutes faster this week, and 2 minutes faster again next month. Pick a lamppost 2 streets away and make it the finish line. Same route, same clock in your pocket, and one honest look at it when you get home. Speed first, minute second. A slow hour and a brisk half hour are not the same purchase, and the deep account only takes one of those 2 currencies. 2 years ago, I counted 88 steps in a minute and thought I was walking fast. Anna counted 109 on the same street in the same shoes without trying. It took me about 7 weeks to get from 88 to 106. Nothing dramatic happened on the scale in those 7 weeks. My belt moved 1 notch, which no scale would ever have shown me. Same street, same shoes, same 40 minutes. The only thing that changed was that I stopped strolling and started walking like a man who was late for something. And there is a second number for the 6-week check. A tape measure at the level of your navel and half your height. Your waist should be smaller than half of you. That is a rough guide to how much fat is packed behind the muscle wall around your gut and next to your liver. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not a scan. It is a signal that is free and repeatable in your own bathroom. So that is the empty walk method in full. Lever 1, the dose. Lever 2, the empty window. Lever 3, the after dinner 10. Lever 4, the overnight gap. Lever 5, the protein floor. Lever 6, the count. 6 levers, 2 windows, 1 sequence. And the sequence matters because doing all 6 on Monday is the fastest way to be doing none of them by Friday. So here is the order over 12 weeks. Weeks 1 and 2, only the count and the after dinner 10. Nothing else changes. Same food, same bedtime, same everything, and 10 minutes on the pavement after the biggest plate of the day. 2 weeks, 2 habits. That is deliberately almost nothing because almost nothing is what you can still be doing in March. Weeks 3 to 6. Build the dose. Get to 3.5 hours of brisk walking a week, most of it in the empty window before breakfast. Keep the count above 100. Measure your waist at the end of week 6. Week 7 to 12. Close the overnight gap at 13 hours. Put protein at breakfast and add the 2 heavy sessions a week. 6 weeks of that, and the shoes go on without a decision being made. 1 habit at a time, in an order that lets each one carry the next. Nothing here needs willpower in week 10 because by week 10, none of it is a decision. By week 12, you are not on a diet. You are a person who walks in the morning, walks after dinner, eats between 8 and 8, and lifts something heavy twice a week. And the change you cannot see is the one that counts. Less fat pressing against your intestines, less traffic arriving at your liver, and a heart pushing blood through a body that gives it less to argue with. Do not expect the scale to celebrate with you. The trials are clear that the deep fat can fall while the weight sits still. That is not failure. That is the drain working while the tap stays open. Waist before weight. Steps before minutes. Every time. What most people notice first is not the belt. It is the stairs at the station, the shopping carried in one trip, and the afternoon that no longer needs a nap. The waist is the last thing to answer and the first thing you are watching. Give it 6 weeks before you decide anything. One more honest note before the end. If you take medication for diabetes or blood pressure, a longer overnight gap can change how that medication behaves, and so can a new walk before breakfast. None of this is a diagnosis, and none of it replaces the person who knows your history. If you live with a health condition, take medication, or are pregnant, take this method to a healthcare professional first and let them adjust it for you. Nothing here promises a cure for anything. Also, worth saying, most of these trials ran for 3 to 12 months. In adults with overweight or obesity, some were men only. None of them were done on people in their 80s. Read them as a direction, not a promise. So, 6 levers, 2 windows, 1 sequence. That is the whole empty walk method, and it costs you nothing but the hour you are already going to spend sitting down. Print it on the back of an envelope if you want. It fits. Go and do the count today. 1 minute, your normal street, your normal shoes. Then put that number in the comments and put it there again in 6 weeks, next to the first one. Comment your steps in a minute below. Mine was 88 and it is 106 now. I read every comment, and the numbers people leave under these videos are the most interesting thing on this channel. If you want the rest of this, subscribe. Mechanisms, not motivation. 1 video per week. And the next video goes deeper into the one thing that undoes all 6 levers. What happens to your deep fat after a short night of sleep? And leave with this. 6 months of walking with nothing to show for it was never a discipline problem. You were spending from the wrong account. Now you know where yours is, and you know exactly how to open it.